Hey everybody, welcome to another World of Tanks replay, this time not by me. This is a match by Desuwa, solo pubbing in his VK7201. Now, I can't recall if I've already put up a video of this tank or not. I think I might have put one up, but I can't be sure. Either way, this one is a good showcase of this tank's strengths, particularly when it's played by somebody who knows what they're doing. So, as Malinovka, Desuwa's got quite a bad spawn for a big, slow heavy. He's got to go all the way across his own base, and if an enemy light tank manages to run out and spot him in spawn, he's going to be in trouble. Of course, he decides not to sit around in spawn because that's a great way to get blown up by tank destroyers, or artillery, of which there are none in this match. Probably a good thing for Desuwa. Takes a snapshot there at the Bulldog. It actually looked like it was pretty close, maybe a meter too far ahead of it, but unfortunately he doesn't get the hit in. The Bulldog lights him, and he does take one hit there, which just bounces off. Now, for those of you who have not yet encountered one or don't really know much about this vehicle, the 7201 is really well armoured. It's one of those tanks that people don't fight enough to know where its weak spots are, and its armor scheme is just good all round. The best way to fight these things is to get beside or behind them. From the front, you're going to have some serious issues. While it may look outwardly like a Löwe, because it is in fact the heavy Löwe design, it's got quite thick armor plates, much unlike the Tier 8 Premium. The front armor, from what I recall, is 200mm all over, and as you can see, the upper plates sloped quite well. The lower plates, not too bad, and that band on the front is actually very thick. It's not a weak spot in the sense that most people would think it is. The engine deck is also very well sloped, leads to a lot of auto bounces, and then the front of the turret's quite strong too. Again, really the best way to deal with these is from the side or rear. Trying to get a shot into the turret ring from the front even will usually end in a bounce because of the angled side plates there, and the fact that you're going to be hitting basically a round object, almost on a tangent. So definitely try and get beside or behind these things. Don't fight them from the front if you can help it. If you absolutely must fight it from the front, you're going to want to go to gold, and you're going to have to try and figure out where to pen it, because I actually don't fight these things often enough to know the best places to shoot. Desuwa heads up the hill, and with no arty in the match, this is a pretty sound course of action. He'll be quite safe up here, especially since the shape of the hill has been changed, so he can more easily control the firing lanes that the enemy tanks have on him. Gets a quick snapshot there into the E50. As Hellsaw says, if you want to hit bullshit shots, then don't aim them, because the moment you aim, your shot will find a way to go into the dirt. So the E50 is already missing a sizable chunk of health, and the IS-7 up on the top of the hill should at least keep the 5120 occupied for a little while. The IS-7, of course, is another tank you really do not want to fight frontally, especially at close range where it has the advantage. But the IS-7 doesn't have the 7201's advantage of being extremely uncommon. Even the people that have these don't generally play them very often. Another snapshot there goes into the T69, knocking off a massive, not sizable, a massive chunk of his health. In fact, he's nearly dead already after taking another hit. And that's the thing, as well as having absolutely fantastic armor and quite a lot of hit points, this tank can knock huge chunks out of lower tier mediums. So it makes it very difficult to try and fight. The only real way to deal with it is to try and wait until it's distracted and flank around it, which the enemy 121 is doing right now. Desuwa takes just above an average roll from the 121, which is not something you ever want to allow behind you. Although in this case there wasn't much he could do about it. He probably thought that the Panther was covering him. The Panther was in fact being useless, hiding down in the low ground. And so Desuwa has to retreat back while the 121 is on reload, trying to get into a position where it can't flank him. T69 gets brave. It's looking for another shot here. And Desuwa's got to try and keep his hull angled to the most threatening tank, which is the 121. The T69 pops up for a shot. Again, the snapshot. When you have a gun that's got fairly bad handling, but enormous power, snapshotting is actually almost kind of worth doing semi-regularly. Obviously not at long range, but for close-in fights like this, you really aren't losing too much by doing it. I mean, even if you aim your shot, waiting for the aim time on this gun, there's a pretty high chance your target's going to get away from you, so you may as well just snapshot, and you're going to end up with a 50-50 anyway. With the 121 temporarily scared off and engaging the IS-7 instead, Desuwa was able to move back up and reclaim some of the ground he lost. Now he's only taken 2 damaging shots so far, one of them a direct hit to the back of his turret by the 121. He's fighting a considerable number of tanks up here by himself, more or less. He did have some teammates, but they weren't really doing much. You can see the bounce marks along the sides of his tank there. And this is really where the 7201 excels, is just finding a piece of terrain it can work and then bouncing pretty much everything. As long as you face it to the most important threat, you're safe for quite a while. It's also surprisingly mobile for such a heavily armoured tank. Even in reverse, it goes pretty decently. Again with the snapshot, and once again it pays off. The 121 is now nearly dead. The 121 returns a snapshot of his own, however it misses just over the top of Desuwa. And it's looking for another shot here. Now that time the snapshot didn't work. Looks like it must have hit the wreck of the T69. And now Desuwa has to worry about shots coming from his right side as well as his front. However, the 7201 is certainly up to the job. I'm just going to quickly whiz around the front here. You can see somebody penned the lower plate there. That was probably the JT. That probably is one of the better places to shoot it. It's not as angled as the upper plate, and it's not as angled as the sides of the turret ring. 4202 comes up and takes care of the 121 for Desuwa. As the enemy team observed, Desuwa is fast running out of friends, but at least while the 4202 is alive, he has another competent player up here with him. Funnily enough, while Desuwa may be running out of teammates, the enemy team are running out of hit points. And this is the kind of point in a match where it can swing very drastically one way or the other. One team's down on players, the other team is down on hit points, and it really comes down to who makes better use of their guns in that time. Desuwa puts a big hit into the JT, right through his upper plate that looked like. Perhaps it hit the MG ball, it's difficult to tell because of the bushes. The 121 goes for a flank, snapshots misses, Desuwa doesn't have to worry about him for a moment. I can see the replay's jittering a bit, sorry about that. Not much I can do at the moment. And the 113 has gone to heat rounds and is still bouncing. Remember, heat does not normalize. It also gets eaten by spaced armor and tracks. So going to heat isn't always the best option. Heat's best used against slab-sided tanks like the Mouse or E100 against the sides of their turrets, against their track skirts. Obviously, it's a very poor idea. Desuwa times that shot nicely and gets the 113 right in the cupola. That leaves nothing on the hill with him. And so for all their taunts, the enemy team have run out of players up here, at least for a moment. Desuwa pushes down to meet the Leopard. Unfortunately, he's met with more tanks than he can realistically handle, misses the ram on the Leopard, which probably would have killed it incidentally, and gets taken out by the 50B. Pretty much unwinnable situation there. A little more work by his teammates could have easily turned this into a win, but unfortunately that just did not happen. Either way, it's a very good demonstration of just how strong this tank is when it's handled well, even on an open map in a relatively open position. And again, this comes back to what I harp on and on about endlessly, being able to work the terrain, especially against opponents like the 121 and the 113. You may have noticed that the 121 in particular was having a lot of trouble with gun depression. He had to expose his entire tank to get a shot off. Partly that's why you generally avoid hills in the 121, and partly that's something that Desuwa no doubt was conscious of while he was playing and was quite happy in forcing the 121 to do. He was positioned well. The 121 had to crest up onto that little road up here, running across the screen diagonally, and in doing so he exposed basically his whole tank, including his belly plate, to Desuwa every time he came up. You may have actually noticed as well, the first shot the 121 took, rather than coming up onto the road because Desuwa still had active teammates up in this area, the 121 actually had to run all the way along here and shoot from around this position where the ground is much, much flatter, and he has a much better chance of getting a shot off without exposing his tank. And then in that case, he's still exposed to the guys along this area who weren't paying attention. I don't know. Anyway, you could probably imagine just the sheer amount of damage bounced and absorbed in this match by Desuwa, but if you want to actually see what the number was for certain, it should be down in the post games, which, unless there has been some kind of horrible fuck up, should be in the video description. In any case, I'd like to thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I certainly did. I like watching this thing in action because I see them so rarely. I don't have one myself, unfortunately. As ever, I wish you the best of luck in the field, and I'll see you on the next video.